dear children, welcome back to English class. This is your Akshya ma'am. Today in this video, I will be explaining you the second lesson of your English textbook called The Elixir of Life. As I told you, this lesson name is The Elixir of Life. It is written by CV Raman. I repeat, CV Raman has written the lesson The Elixir of Life. Before going with the explanation of the lesson, I would first like to tell you what is the meaning of elixir. Elixir is a liquid substance with a magical powers to prolong life indefinitely. So, elixir is nothing but a liquid which will prolong your life indefinitely with a magical powers. It has magical powers. What kind of a liquid is this? Is it Amrita? Amrita is one thing which is a divine liquid which gives long lasting life, wherein you won't have any death. Is it about that liquid you are talking about, ma'am? No, children. The commonest of the liquid, that is our water, we are talking here about. Today, the elixir of our life is nothing but the water, that is the commonest of the liquid which prolongs life, is what this author CV Raman is telling in this lesson. We'll see what all has he spoken about the water. Here you can see the picture of CV Raman, children. So, Sir CV Raman was born in the year 1888 and he left us in the year 1970. He had keen interest in science even from his boyhood days. For his famous discovery called the Raman effect, which you have read in science, for that he was awarded the Nobel Prize for Physics in 1930. King George knighted him for his contribution to physics. The government of India awarded him the Bharat Ratna and the Soviet Union honored him with the International Lenin Prize in 1957. Children, now you are able to see the picture of our Mother Earth. This is our planet where we live. Most of the places you can see water. We also know 72% of our planet Earth is filled with water. What is our life without this? Can you imagine? Can your life be sustained for a long time without water? No. About this particular water, CV Raman is explaining in this lesson how to preserve water. What are the causes if the water is not there? And what kind of things can water create? How important it is all explained here. Let's see. Here, children, you are able to see the first three paragraphs of the lesson, The Elixir of Life, written by CV Raman. The first para goes like this. Man has through the ages sought in vain for an imaginary elixir of life, the divine Amrita, to confer immortality. But the true elixir of life lies near to our hands, for it is the commonest of all liquids, plain water. The meaning of vain is self-love or self-admiring or in love with oneself. The meaning of immortality is living forever, never dying or decaying. So the meaning of this paragraph is every time man is throughout his life, he is just holding on one thing, that he wants to achieve a elixir, that is an imaginary elixir. He is always fascinated about his love for life. He wants himself to be immortal. He don't want to die. So he is always behind this imaginary elixir. But he is forgetting there is one elixir which is the commonest of all liquid which will help him to survive on this earth. What is it? It is the plain water. Coming to the second para, I remember one day standing on the line which separates the Libyan desert from the valley of the Nile in Egypt. On one side was visible a sea of billowing. Billowing is nothing but spreading over a large area, sand without a speck of green or a single living thing anywhere visible on it, while on the other side lay one of the greenest, most fertile and densely populated areas to be found anywhere on the earth, teeming with life and vegetation. What made this wonderful difference? Why, it is the water of the river Nile flowing down to the Mediterranean Sea from its sources a couple of thousands of miles away. So what he is telling here is, see, when he remembers one day standing in the line, that is the path where that separates the Libyan desert from the valley of Nile in the Egypt. In the Egypt, there is a point, you can Google it. In that particular place, if you stand, you can see to the opposite sides of each other. One side you can see the desert called as Libyan desert, and to the other side of the Egypt you can see the valley of the Nile river. What made this difference? One side it is completely greenery and the life is there, vegetation is there and it is densely populated. But to the other side only sand you can see and it is too hot over there. Why is this difference is what he is thinking, and he also feels why is this particular river Nile flowing towards the Mediterranean Sea, which is almost couple of thousands of miles away. Why is it not flowing towards this desert? This question he gets in his mind. Third paragraph, geologist tells us that the entire soil of the Nile Valley is the creation of the river itself. It was brought down as the finest silt. Silt is nothing but sand or mud carried by the flowing water and left at the mouth of the river. In its flood waters from the highlands of Abyssinia and from remote Central Africa and laid down through the ages in the throat through which the Nile flows into the sea. Egypt, in fact, was made by its river. Its ancient civilization was created and is sustained. Sustained means living still by the life-giving waters which come down year after year with unfailing regularity. So, what exactly he is talking about in the third paragraph is, see children, what geologist tells is the entire soil of the Nile Valley is actually created by the river itself. When water is flowing from one part to another part, it has to travel through many regions. Here he is saying Abyssinia and the highland of Abyssinia and the remote Central Africa, it has to travel these two regions and then meet the other places. That is to go and meet Mediterranean Sea, it has to pass through these regions. When it is passing through these regions, it is collecting all the finest silt, that is particles, and it is moving towards Mediterranean Sea and it is leaving to the throat of that particular river. This is what he is completely aware of from the geologist. So, he also knows this particular Egypt, what it has been created is only because of its river Nile. Because of the soil, that is, it is carrying off when it is traveling from one place to another. By this only life-giving water which come down year after year. And every year without a fail, it will never be irregular. It will come just like a rainfall. Every year there is a rainfall over there. Because of that, Egypt has been formed today is what he has heard and known from the geologists. Let's go to the fourth paragraph. Coming to fourth paragraph and the fifth paragraph in this slide, I give this example and could give many other to emphasize. What is the meaning of emphasize? Give special importance or value to something in speaking or writing. That this common substance which we take for granted in our everyday life is the most potent. Meaning of potent is powerful and the most wonderful thing on the face of our earth. What here he is saying is, you can give thousands of examples just like Libyan desert and the valley of Nile, which is just opposite to each other and with contrary features. So this kind of example I can give you more, but people are taking our water, which is the most commonest of liquid, to be granted, but it is the one thing which looks more wonderful on the face of our mother planet. It has played a role of vast significance in shaping the course of Earth's history and continues to play the leading role in the drama of life on the surface of our planet. So he is saying it has played the most significant role in shaping the history of our planet. What? Water. Again, it is continuing to again shape our future of our planet. So it is not stopping to play an important significant role in shaping our future as well as our past. There is nothing which adds so much to the beauty of the countryside as water, be it just a little stream trickling over the rocks or a little pond by the wayside where the cattle quench their thirst. The meaning of quench is satisfy. Stream is a small narrow river of an evening. The rain-fed tanks that are so common in South India, alas is nothing but used to express pity or sad, often so sadly neglected in their maintenance, are the cheering sight when they are full. Cheering means shouting for joy. So I'll explain till here. So he says, actually, when you are moving from one place to another place, say for example, it is a Ghat section. If there is some water trickling from the loops of these rocks, you feel so wonderful. You feel like going and taking picture and playing with the water there. Yes or no? So it's a very beautiful sight for you. Water plays so beautiful role in your life. And say for example, there is just a pond somewhere in your wayside where cattle come and quench their thirst. That also looks so beautiful. And also the rain-fed tanks in India is the most cheering sight, he says, when they are full. What are these rain-fed tanks? See children, whenever in you can see in every streets there are some tanks being built by these BBMP people. When the when the rain comes, the water gets accumulated in these particular tanks, and sometimes BBMP people also come fill that particular tank for two or three times in a week. This happens. He is saying this in South India is the most cheering sight when they are full. They are of course shallow, but the less evident since the water is silt laden. He is saying they are very much shallow. That is, they are depth. Why is he saying so? Because usually the silt laden, what is silt? I told you, sand or mud which just carried by the water. Most of the bottom of these particular tanks will be filled with the sand and the clay particles just like soil, and throws the light back, and the bottom does not therefore show off. So that is what has been seen. So the bottom is not shown. These tanks play a vital role in South Indian agriculture. I don't know about today, but before it may be. Some of these tanks are surprisingly large, and it is beautiful sight to see sunrise and sunset one of them. So over one of them, what he is saying is sunrise and the sunset over them is the most beautiful thing. Today in Bangalore or some other places, you can only see buildings where you can't expect to see sunrise and sunset. Maybe those days when many buildings were not there, behind these tanks when the sunrise and sunset used to happen, he used to feel happy. And then water in a landscape may be compared to the eyes in a human face. So beautifully is comparing the water in the area wherever you can see if there is water, that is compared to the human face, eyes of the human face. So beautifully, without eyes can you just see whatever the beauty that is happening beside you? No. So that beauty of water is compared to the eyes. It reflects the mood of the hour, being bright. So actually it reflects the mood. The water in the landscape, that is any water that is visible in an area of land, actually acts like according to the mood. Say for example, in the morning it is very bright and gay. Gay means very cheerful. And in the night again, it is going, when it is turning out to be very dark and gloomy, it acts just like a sky. Yes or no? You are seeing the sky exactly opposite to that particular. It is just falling on that particular water. So the landscape water, whatever is there, is just compared to the human eyes. Our eyes looks very bright in the morning, and it looks just like a night gloomy ones in the night times. That is what he is comparing. Let's go to the next paragraphs. Coming to the 6th, 7th and 8th paragraph of this particular slide. Children, I will read out every paragraph and precisely I will tell the meaning of the paragraph, because it will bore you, because it is only about the water. Every time I'm talking, you get bored. So I would just precisely give the explanation. 6th paragraph says, one of the most remarkable facts about water, its power to carry silt or finely divided soil in suspension. What is the meaning of suspension? The state of water with the very small particles of sand and other particles. This is the origin of the characteristic color of the water in the rain-fed tanks. This color varies with the nature of the earth in the catchment area and is most vivid immediately after a fresh inflow following rain. Swiftly flowing water can carry fairly large and heavy particles. The finest particles, however, remain floating within the liquid in spite of their greater density and are, of course, extremely small, but their number is also great. So what he is telling here is the most remarkable fact of this particular water is that it carries sand, soil, mud, whatever it has to carry when it is flowing from one place to another place. So the color that we get in the catchment water, that is in the resulting water where it will go and accumulate in that particular pond or something, or in the river or in the ocean, whatever that is accumulated, it will take the color of this particles which has been carried along with its way. So that color what it has been carried, and the particles that it has been carried, maybe it is in large size or it might be a smaller size. The large size may just go settle down, whereas the smallest size density particles will just get dissolved in the water. Even though if it gets dissolved in the water, it will play a more remarkable part in the life of the water. Seventh para, the flow of water has undoubtedly played a great part, and the beneficent one is in the geological processes by which the soil on the earth's surface has been formed from the rocks of its crust. The same agency, to however be under appropriate condition, can also play a destructive part and wash away the soil, which is the foundation of all the agriculture, and if all wet to proceed unchecked, can have the most dangerous, disastrous effects on the life of the country. The problem of soil erosion is one of serious import in various countries and especially in many parts of India. The condition under which it occurs and the measures by which it can be checked deserves the closest study. So what here in the seventh para he is telling is the most beneficent one is to study about the soil and from where it has come, and the water when it is flowing, how much amount of soil has been brought. Because see children, this water plays both kind of a role. It plays the role of helping the plants to grow, and it also plays the role of making the plant to die. How? Say for the natural vegetation layer of that particular soil is eradicated, it has been rushed away by this particular water when it is flowing, then that plant will not grow properly. That process is called as soil erosion. If we don't check it properly, then the most disastrous effect that will happen to the country. This is actually happening in India in greater parts of India in a greater level. So the conditions has to be checked so that it will not occur. Measures has to be taken before any more disastrous thing can happen, is what here he is saying. Coming to the eighth para, soil erosion occurs in successive steps. Successive means one after the other. So it happens one after the other step, the earliest of which may easily pass unnoticed. In the later stages, the cutting up and washing away of the earth is only too painful apparent in the formation of the deep gullies and ravines. Gullies and ravines is channels made by running water, which make all agriculture impossible. Sudden burst of excessive heavy rain, resulting in a large runoff of surplus. Surplus is an excessive production or supply. Surplus is excessive production or supply of water are the principal factor in causing soil erosion. So what here the author is saying is excessive of water being put to the agricultural land, or if there is no proper bunds and checks are nothing but the places where the water can be stopped from flowing. If that is not done, then it will be a very painful situation for the agriculture that is happening in India. So, contributory causes. Along with this, what are the contributory causes that is happening for the soil erosion are slope of the land. If the land is not in a proper manner, if it is slope, removal of the natural protection coat of vegetation. When there, as I told you, if there is a natural coat of vegetation in every land, if that part is removed, then that is called as soil erosion. The existence of ruts along which the water can flow with rapidly gathering momentum. If I told you there should be some ruts or checks or bounds to be created. But if that is created in such a way that the water will not stand in particular place, it just moves, gathering some momentum, that is speed, then there won't be a flow, then there won't be soil particle available for the plant to stick on tightly and grow properly, and the absence of any checks to such flow. As I told you, if there is no checks or bounds created for the flow of water to be restricted, then also it happens. Incredibly large quantities of precious soil can be washed away if such condition exists. As I told you, the main mud particle that is necessary for the plant to be holding properly and to give the plant necessary food, if that is not there, which is being washed away, then obviously there won't be good vegetation, is unhappy too often the case. So water plays the role of making the plant grow, making the vegetation of the country in a good manner. But at the same time, if it is not checked properly, it also causes to an extent that vegetation is completely collapsed. Understood, children? We'll go with this ninth para. Coming to ninth, 10th and 11th paragraphs. Ninth para goes like this. The menace is nothing but threat which soil erosion presents to the continuance of successful agriculture is an alarming one in many parts of India, calling urgently for attention and preventive action. The terracing means preparing different levels. Terracing of the land, the construction of bunds to check the flow of water, the practice of counter cultivation. The meaning of counter cultivation is cultivation along the same level of elevation to prevent soil erosion, and the planting of appropriate type of vegetation are amongst the measures that have been suggested. It is obvious that the aim should be to check the flow of water at the earliest possible stage before it has acquired any appreciable momentum. Momentum means speed and correspondingly large destructive power. Destructive means destroying power. So the meaning is, here he says soil erosion, if it is there, then the continuous successful agriculture cannot be happening. So that is the main threat, and it is the alarming for the agriculture people in India. So what we have to do, we have to urgently call for the attention and the prevention actions that we have to take. And so there are some actions, measures that you can do. That is, the first one he is saying, prepare the different levels for the land. That is terracing of the land. You can see coffee and tea growers will have the terracing of the land done. So one level there is plants, and the other level down to that there are some more plants. Like this, they will have terracing done for the crops. The construction of bunds to check the flow of water, that is dibba, what we call, if it is done, dibba in Kannada. So if you have bunds created so that the water flow will not happen from one place to another place very rapidly. And so the practice of counter cultivation in the same level of elevation, if there is crops being planted and water is being flowing, then the soil will not be eradicately going to another part. It will just accumulate in that particular part itself. And the planting of appropriate type of vegetation, that means according to the season, according to the land, according to the soil, according to the water facility what you have, according to that, if you are planting the vegetation, then you can have good control over the soil erosion. It is obvious that the aim should be mainly, before anything that can happen, first step only, if you make sure you have noticed it, then you can easily come away from the soil erosion. Otherwise, if it has reached to an extent where you can't take it to control, then the vegetation is going to be completely destroyed. Water is the basis of all life. Every animal and every plant contains a sustainable portions of free and combined water in its body, and no kind of physiological activity is possible in which the fluid does not play an essential part. So water is of course necessary for animal life, while moisture in the soil is equally imperative for the life and growth of the plants and trees. So here he is saying water is the basis of everybody's life. See, we need not drink water, but some free liquid, that is water, is contained in our body. In the same way, it is contained in animals and plants also. And with that only, any physical movement that has to happen in our body is we are able to pursue. Otherwise, we can't do it. In the same way, even the moisture in the soil plays the most important role. So we have to maintain that moisture in the land for the trees and plants to grow. The preservation and utilization of water is thus fundamental for human welfare. So we have to preserve and utilize the water properly for our welfare. Apart from artesian is nothing but underground water springing from a hole. So artesian water, the ultimate source in all cases is rain or snowfall. So underground water also we have, which will spring from the hole. Along with that, we also are dependent on rain and snowfall. Much of Indian agriculture depends on seasonal rainfall and is therefore very sensitive to any failure or irregularity of the same. So India is seasonal. So India is dependent on seasonal rainfall rainfall. If that is not regularly happening, then India is going to face a lot of failure. The problems of soil erosion and inadequate means very less or irregular rainfall are closely connected with each other. Along with the problems of soil erosion, if there is inadequate or less or irregular rainfall, then the agriculture of India is going to be in a big trouble. It is clear that the adoption of techniques preventing soil erosion would also help to conserve and keep the water where it is wanted. In other words, on and in the soil, and such techniques therefore serve a double purpose. So techniques are there to prevent soil erosion and also to preserve the water inside the soil and to have the water outside the soil. How to preserve the water, all these techniques we have to adopt those techniques, is what CV Raman is saying. It is evident, however, that in a country having only a seasonal rainfall, as immense quantity of rainfall must necessarily run off the ground. The collection and utilization of this water is therefore of vital importance. So every country, I mean especially India, is dependent on seasonal rainfall. When rainfall is happening, most of the water some water may be used by the plants, but some other waters are being running out without any use. Such waters has to be preserved. That makes a very important role. Much of it flows down into the streams and rivers and ultimately finds its way to sea. So much of them will go to the rivers, streams, and then ultimately find the way to sea. Incredibly large quantities of these precious fluid are thus lost to the country. It is a loss for the country because most of these liquids are ruined away. The harnessing of our rivers, the waters of which mostly run to waste, is a great national problem which must be considered and dealt with on national lines. Vast areas land which are at present are mere scrub jungle could be turned into fertile and prosperous country by courageous and well planned action. What he is saying is harnessing is putting into use. So there are some places, I mean water are actually being taken to one particular place. When such rainfall happen, such water which will not be used will go and meet the sea or the river or the ocean or something. Such water has to be made as use. That is, there are methods, rainwater harvesting, these kind of measure can be taken. And also he is saying scrub jungle is some part of the place if that is not being used, which is not grown, nothing is properly grown. Such places, if they made it to be fertile one, and if they start growing, then the courageous and well planned action, if you take and do it, then our country is going to prosper, is what he is giving an idea. Coming to the last three paragraphs of this lesson, 12th, 13th and 14th are given here. 12th para goes like this. Closely connected with the conservation of water supplies is the problem of afforestation. The systematic planting of suitable trees in every possible or even in impossible areas, and the development of what one can call civilized forest as distinguished from wild and untamed jungles, is one of the most urgent needs of India. Such plantation would directly and indirectly prove a source of untold wealth to the country. They would check soil erosion and conserve the rainfall of the country from flowing away to water. So afforestation is nothing but in any place where the trees are not there, you are going to plant. So what kind of a trees are you going to plant? Similar kind of a trees when you are planting, then the conservation of water is very much easy. If there are different kinds of closely connected trees I am talking about. When there are closely connected trees, then the soil erosion and the rainfall unutilization can be stopped. This is what even he is saying. And also, and in the places where the developed places you can call, and civilized forest, that is man-made forest. He is saying when there are some untamed jungles, untamed means less difficult to control, and wild jungles. There are wild jungles where you cannot control the rainfall, or you cannot go inside so easily. Such kind of jungles, and untamed, which is not much difficult, that kind of a jungle, and where the development is not properly happening, in such kind of a places, if you have a properly maintained forestry, and if you make a civilized forest, that is man-made forest, then obviously the soil erosion can be controlled, and the water flow of rainwater without utilization can also be controlled, is what he is saying, and this adds to the wealth of the country. 13th one, the measures are necessary to control the movement of water and conserve the supplies of it can also serve subsidiary purpose of the value to the life of this countryside. By far, the cheapest form of internal transport in a country is by boats and barges. Barges are nothing but large boats with flat bottom through canals and rivers. We hear much about programs of rail and road construction, but far too little about the development of internal waterways in India. So he is saying there are many measures necessarily that you can carry on to control the movement of water and conserve the supply. So if this has to happen, then if this happens, then it'll add on to the wealth of the country. But how can that be happen? See, we have the cheapest form of transport, internal transport, that is by boats or something, boats and barges. As I told you, it is the large boats with flat bottom. If you supply with these two kind of a transportation, then it will be very cheapest. And creating canals and rivers, through canals and rivers also you can send the items. So if you do this, then it is easy for us to create a channels for our places in the country, so that water can be preserved and utilized properly. So we hear much of the programs that rail and the road construction, for the road and rail construction, but we hear very less when it comes to transport, when it goes on the sea and oceans. So if that is happening, internal waterways, when you create, it adds to the wealth of the country, he is saying. Then again, the harvesting of water supply usually also makes possible the development of hydroelectric power. When this is done, it is easy for the development of hydroelectric power. So from the water you get the electricity, that is called as hydroelectric power. The availability of electric power would make a tremendous difference to the life of the countryside and enable the rural economy to be improved in various directions. In particular, it would enable underground water to be tapped to a greater extent than at present. So if we do this, the underground water level will be increased, and obviously hydroelectric power stations will make a tremendous difference in the life of our country. In particular, it would enable underground water to be tapped to a greater extent than at present, and thus help to overcome the difficulties arising from irregularity and inadequacy of other sources of supply. So if there is anything less or irregularity in the supply of other essential things, supply of any essential things, then that can also be utilized. Say for example, power, if it is less, hydroelectricity power can be utilized, is what he is meaning here. So in one sense, water is the commonest of liquid. In other sense, it is the most uncommon of liquid, with amazing properties which are responsible for its unique power of maintaining animal and plant life. So water is the commonest of liquid in one sense. The other sense, it is the most uncommon of liquid. It is commonest and uncommonest also when it comes to the unique power that it has to maintain the life of the plant and animal. The investigation of the nature and properties of water is therefore of the highest significance, interest, and is far from the exhausted field of research. So, investigation has to happen on the nature and properties of water. Therefore, it in the science, it is in the scientific interest, but it is exhausted field of research, far from an exhausted field of research, that he says if we show an interest, then it is not away from the research. So he is saying in a exact meaning he is giving us is to maintain ecological balance, to not let go of water whenever you want, save them. Every drop of water is more important. Do research on it. Even if you can't do a research, please, whatever that's in your hand, preserve it, utilize it in a proper manner. This is what he is completely explaining in this lesson. I know it might have bored you, but we can't help. This is about the lesson. The main things that he has focused on this in this lesson is how to preserve water, how to control soil erosion that is created by the flow of water rapidly. Understood? These are the two things that he is speaking here. Never take water as granted. I hope you understood the lesson. Meanings, when I was explaining, I have given you. In the notes also, the meanings will be given. You can study. Okay? Okay, children, this ends the explanation of the lesson, The Elixir of Life, written by CV Raman. I know it bored you a little because it's about water everywhere and they're all known to you. The facts of water is actually known to you. But still, it's my duty that I have to explain line by line. But still, I went very fast to not to bore you, but I couldn't help. Anyways, children, stay home, stay safe, stay healthy, and keep learning. Take care. Thank you.